Every once in a while, I go back and do an older video, one that I think is still relevant or that provides some theological point to evaluate, or, as in this case, where the theist is so absurdly dumb that we have to take it out just to prove to the world that there's something severely wrong with these people. And that's what we're going to get today. Enjoy! This is going to be an older video by Barak Lurie that I stumbled across, and really, I can't understand how anybody can be this dumb. I mean, yes, he is religious, but this guy should make even committed Christians reconsider their beliefs, because they ought not want anything at all to do with this loser. I'm kind of feeling dirty just watching the thing. So, does godlessness destroy courage? No, it just makes you a better brand of human being than Barak Lurie is. So, let's watch.
Without God, there is no reason to be courageous.
You're wrong? In fact, you have that completely backwards. With a God, you have no reason at all to be courageous, because with the God, you have no need to do anything, at least in theory. Remember, and we're going to go with the Christian model here, the one that Barak Lurie believes in. If you have an all-powerful, all-loving, all-knowing deity, then it's pretty hard to justify why you should have to do anything at all for yourself. You need something? Well, your wish is my command. I mean, why not? It takes literally no effort at all for an omniproperty God to just go make stuff go your way. Granted, there are arguments against that, and we'll probably get into that later, but God really has no excuse for evil to exist in the world. If you don't have to fight your way through your life, then what do you need courage for?
Hi folks, Barak Lurie again on the Barak Lurie Show, talking again about atheism destroys, and yet another segment of the book to talk about how godlessness destroys courage.
Oh good, this is just another effort to make money off of his book. Now, that's nothing new, of course. Most apologists do it. They will show up to sell you crap off their website or whatever. So, just for shits and giggles, I ran over to Amazon and poked around, and for a book that's been out for well over a year now, at least as I'm writing this, it is not performing very well at all. Now, that's probably pretty common for a religious book. At the moment, he's sitting at 2,795,743 overall in the rankings. And if we look at just, say, the newest update to Evidence Demands a Verdict, something that was on my mind because I just did a Sean McDowell video recently, that one is sitting at number 5,959, and that came out back in 2017. So Barak is doing pretty poorly in the ratings as well, and when you consider that at present, 24% of reviews are 1 star, mostly atheists laughing at this dipshit, I figure he's got nothing to be proud of. Even if you filter out all of the 1 stars, he's still not doing very well. So let's see if he has anything intelligent to say, or if he's just looking for sales. Continue on, Mr. Lurie. Continue on.
In this book, Atheism Destroys, I go over 2020 as the year of fear. How COVID and our reaction to COVID demonstrates exactly my point about courage. You may have noticed in these past 2 or so years that those who resisted the mask mandates, the vaccine mandates, who fought with the schools, tended to be religious.
Yeah, stupid. That's not courage, that's delusion. This is kind of where we're having these problems. People like Lurie, he doesn't seem to know the difference. These are people who think their imaginary friend is going to save them from reality. And guess what? Those people tend to die. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but all you have to do is look at the statistics. In the UK, which is the first result that happened to come up, the highest rates of death involving COVID were the religious, specifically in this case Muslim, Jewish, Hindu, or Sikh. And you might say, well, where are the Christians? Well, there don't tend to be an awful lot of fundamentalist Christians in the UK, unlike the other groups listed. But how did atheists fare? Because we do have statistics on that. They had the lowest rate of death involving COVID because they weren't being dumb. So, moving to the US, which I figure is probably going to be more representative, we find that fundamentalist Christians in particular had a massive number of deaths compared to those who just followed common sense restrictions and didn't pretend that their imaginary friend in the sky was going to save them. According to journalist Alex Woodward, dozens of pastors across the Bible Belt have succumbed to coronavirus after churches and televangelists played down the pandemic and actively encouraged churchgoers to flout self-distancing guidelines. As many as 30 church leaders from the nation's largest African-American Pentecostal denomination have now been confirmed to have died in the outbreak, as members defied public health warnings to avoid large gatherings to prevent transmitting the virus. One of the fundamentalists who defied social distancing, according to Woodward, was Bishop Gerald Glenn, founder of the New Deliverance Evangelistic Church of Chesterfield, Virginia. While other pastors were moving their sermons online, Glenn preached at a March 15th service, which was attended by almost 200 people. And on April 14th, 2020, CNN reported that Glenn had died of coronavirus. Apparently, faith don't make you smart.
They had a sense of what's right and what's wrong. Now, maybe they were wrong. Maybe they were endangering everyone. That's not the point that I'm trying to make.
But it should be. What they had wasn't courage. It was just abject stupidity. That's the thing. Their faith didn't save their lives. Their magical father figure in the sky didn't make them immune. They caught it at a much higher rate than atheists, and they died from it at a much higher rate than atheists, not because they were brave, but because they were a bunch of delusional dumb shits. This is the problem with the religiously deluded. They aren't concerned when they should be, and they project a false and frankly dangerous pseudo-courage of things that they ought to be concerned about, but they're not because they're morons. And I've seen a lot of people pushing this kind of narrative. It's like telling your kid, well, go ahead, play in traffic. It proves that you're brave. No, it just proves you have absolutely no common sense.
The point I am trying to make is that they acted courageously. They fought against the system. And the question is why?
No, they just proved that they didn't have a brain in their heads. Now, I know that this is an old video by now, but I still had to leave a comment. Lots of atheists had already, but I said, that wasn't bravery. That was abject stupidity. It's like playing in traffic and saying, see how brave I am? Just before you get run over. Doing stupid crap doesn't make you brave. It just proves how delusional these religious wingnuts are. Now, he might delete it, I don't know, and it doesn't really matter, but Lurie is one of those people whose views are both downright dangerous and laughably ridiculous. It's kind of hard to go wrong making fun of this dumbass.
I'd put it to you that the reason why is they had a sense of God, and they knew that their purpose was to see and do God's will.
No, they were delusional. They believed things for bad reasons, and then they just found out how wrong they were. The AMA put out a brief that identified 5 reasons why in-person church services, which is what these lunatics were pushing, were a really, really bad idea. They're in enclosed spaces with large groups of people in close proximity for a long period of time where everybody is talking and singing and therefore spreading disease. It's why, statistically, you had these huge breakouts in churches and other religious gatherings because microbiology doesn't really care about your faith. In fact, this just proved that religious faith was complete bunk. If God was real and God cared, then we shouldn't see nature doing what nature does in these situations. These people should have been safe. Instead, a lot of them are dead.
Now, when you don't have God in your life, and you don't have a sense of a rallying cry around America, for example, Western civilization, the notion of free speech and freedom, things that we have talked about in the values in Atheism Destroys.
There's a difference between freedom and being a complete idiot. What he's talking about is like running around on an active firing range screaming, "God will save me! God will save me!" And then you get shot dead because you're a freaking imbecile. And this is the same kind of thing that goes on with those crazy snake-handling preachers who think God is going to keep them from getting bit. Just ask Jamie Coots how that worked out, won't you? And the thing is, these people just don't learn. Because after Jamie Coots died of a snake bite, his son Cody, another dipshit in the same vein, he got bit too. Now, luckily, somebody had the presence of mind to get him to a hospital instead of, as he asked, taking him to the mountain so God could decide his fate. And therefore, he survived. Maybe they should have just let him go. I don't know. It would have been better off for the people following him. The more cases that we see of religious stupidity having bad ends, perhaps people will finally figure out just how stupid it all is.
What do you have to rally around? Well, here comes this COVID crisis. And it afforded everyone this incredible opportunity to unite, to give them a sense of purpose, to show everyone else that they were doing something.
They were. They were following proper medical procedures to keep themselves and others safe. Now, I admit that there were places that went way the hell too far, and that's something else to be addressed, but there's a difference between having rights and being stupid. Your rights don't mean a whole lot if you're dead, but these people are just out of their minds. They don't comprehend how the real world actually works, and Lurie is, he's a special kind of imbecile. It's like leaping into shark-infested waters wearing a bag of fish guts, but so long as you keep your eyes clenched tightly closed, well, you think you're safe because if you can't see it, it can't hurt you. But that's not how it works.
And that was very important to them. It was a purpose not unlike that of some, say, religious people who believe that they have a purpose in following God's will and doing God's will.
And how did that work out for them, seeing as how a lot of them are now dead? Was that God's will? Well, I'd like you to die in pain from a virus that, had you just taken some very common sense precautions about, you could still be here today. If that was their purpose in life, well done, I guess. I just call that stupid.
Likewise, the horrible killing of George Floyd in May of 2020, we saw the reaction of so many cities with riots and other demonstrations, and we saw how people immediately changed their tune when it came to what they perceived to be a racist killing.
Yeah, this really isn't the place to talk about that, and certainly if you think that causing billions of dollars in damage and holding multiple cities hostage while they're burning to the ground is a good thing, then you've got as much wrong with you as Barak Lurie does. That's another example of a very poor reaction to reality and going on pure emotions and not a rational evaluation of the facts. I've written extensively about the fact that the far left and the far right, they're basically doing the exact same things for the exact same reasons, and neither of them has any business at all of being proud of themselves, because they're all idiots.
Suddenly, it was okay to go out in protests, demonstrations, and otherwise. But because it was allegedly about racism, governments and everyone else kowtowed to the mob. It was fear. 2020, as I said, was the year of fear.
And that's what you people count on. Religion only exists because of fear. If you can keep people afraid and keep promising answers, then they'll return to your church again and again and again, throwing money in your collection plate because they want those solutions. The problem is, none of those solutions actually exist. It's all just a con job, just like a lot of the crap on the political left. So long as they pretend that they're right and everybody else is out to get you, it keeps people loyal, right up until they start to realize, wait a minute, and they start to ask some questions. It's why both sides actively discourage any questioning of their blind faith. They know it doesn't stand up to any kind of rational scrutiny.
I believe, especially with the COVID crisis, that had this happened, say, 50 years ago, 75 years ago, they would say this is unacceptable. We have to go about living our lives.
Sadly, but not surprisingly, Lurie knows nothing at all of history because the last time this happened, back in 1918 with the Spanish flu, they did pretty much the same thing. I mean, they were limited in what their technology allowed, but they tried to do the same thing. In Japan, for instance, we have pictures of schoolgirls going to school wearing face masks to protect them against the virus. In fact, some of that has become ingrained in Japanese culture. They saw private undertaking houses get completely overwhelmed, sometimes leaving dead bodies to rot in homes for days on end because they just couldn't take care of them all. Some of them took advantage of the situation by raising their rates up to 600%. In Chicago, police were ordered to arrest anyone coughing or sneezing in public. In Nashville, all public gatherings, including movie houses, dance halls, and pool parlors, were closed. Even ministers were ordered not to hold church services. Jeffrey Taubenberger, chief of cellular pathology and genetics in the U.S. Armed Forces Institute of Pathology and a world-renowned leader in Spanish flu research, estimates that about a third of the U.S. population was infected with Spanish flu. In many cities, with medical facilities already overtaxed by the end of World War I, medical supplies were scant, and huge numbers of doctors had already been sent overseas to treat the wounded. The 1918 pandemic killed more people worldwide in just 4 months, more than 21 million people overall, than the combined casualties of World War I, World War II, the Korean War, and the Vietnam War combined. And then the virus just vanished before scientists could even identify it. It was the deadliest flu pandemic in history. This guy doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about.
But that, of course, was during a time where people were much more religiously observant and had God as the center of their lives.
No, they just weren't dicks. People voluntarily kept away from other people. People weren't just running around screaming, "My rights, my rights!" People weren't dumb, like today. That had nothing at all to do with religion. It had to do with maturity. And it's too bad that we don't have a lot of that out there today.
Now, people made the connection that somehow fighting COVID was like fighting the Nazis in World War II, but not so fast. You see, in World War II, we sacrificed lives for the sake of saving civilization.
So, where were you? Oh, I know he's too young to have been in the military in World War II, but what about other wars? Where did Barak Lurie ever voluntarily sign up to fight? Funny, I can't find any mention of his military service anywhere. Certainly he doesn't make a big deal of it that I've seen, which, if he thinks we're out there saving civilization, shouldn't he be one of the first ones to get shot at? Or is he just a hypocrite? You tell me.
Today, we're sacrificing civilization for the sake of lives. That's a big turnabout.
Because lives matter? I mean, I know dumbasses with imaginary friends don't matter, but holy crap, this guy is a complete idiot, and that's why I don't usually talk about him very often. He's way too easy to take pot shots at, and given some of the people that we do look at around here, that's really saying something. Maybe we should save lives. I mean, from his perspective, where his life is just a filthy rag to be disposed of on the fast track to magical happy land in the sky, he might not think so, but he's a demonstrable idiot. Don't listen to Barak Lurie. You have to be better than that.
And the reason why is because godlessness has defeated courage.
No, it just stopped us from being quite so stupid. It isn't brave to just throw your life away unnecessarily. It's why, at the end of World War II, we used the atomic bomb, because we knew that we'd lose tons of people on both sides if we didn't. In fact, it's estimated that bombing Hiroshima and Nagasaki saved the lives of roughly 30 million people. So we sacrificed around 200,000 to save 30 million. If you ask me, that's not a bad exchange.
If we understand that, we understand that the only way to get back this sort of national sense of courage is to bring God in our lives.
God has nothing at all to do with it. What you mean is you want people to be stupid, self-centered, self-aggrandizing, and willing to fuck over their neighbors for a childish round of, because I want to. This is the kind of thing that we have to look forward to if the far religious right gets into control. Granted, the far regressive left is just as bad because they both have no grasp at all on reality, but that's why, as far as I'm concerned, they can all just go fuck off. Good riddance to them all.
Without God, there is no reason to be courageous. Why should you? Why not just do whatever you want every day? Because after all, from the atheist point of view, there is no hereafter. Make the most of things right now because that's all there is.
Yeah, that's kind of the point. Why be stupid and throw your life away when this is all we get? At least so far as we can tell. It's why Muslims can always con people into strapping on bomb vests because they promise an eternity with 72 virgins and other ridiculous things that aren't demonstrably factually true. Bamboozle them with bullshit and you can get them to do anything. No, if people actually think rationally and critically, the last thing that they're going to do is just throw their lives away on meaningless religious, social, or ideological bunk. You know, that's the kind of stuff that you push. Feel free. You first.
Those with God in their lives, they know that there's something worth fighting for, something that goes far beyond them. Something that even goes far beyond their lives and even their freedom. That's God.
You're dumb. You really are. This is why I just had to do this video because, holy crap, this guy has some serious mental problems, and I think most theists are going to back me up on that. This is why these people are so dangerous. They have absolutely no grasp on reality. None at all. They think an imaginary man in the sky is going to just whisk them away to some magical happy land so they don't have to care about the real world because it all ultimately doesn't matter. Blow it up. Pollute it until it doesn't support life anymore. What difference does it make? They're just going to go be with God. Yeah, these people should be locked up for the good of everybody else. These people have severe mental problems, and they need to be removed from society before they get any power to go through with any of this at all.
And to do God's will. That's the reason why godlessness destroys courage.
No, it just destroys stupidity. Anyway, I'm just going to stop right there. He goes into some more self-promotion, and we just don't give them a chance to do any of that around here, so that's enough. I honestly think that I've made my point in all of this. He knows nothing, he has no idea what reality looks like, and he'd rather send other people off to die, not that he'd go and do it himself or anything, because it feeds his theistic ego and hopefully, at least for him, it sells books. That's what all of this is always about. It's just idiotic, and that describes Barak Lurie completely. Let me know what you think about this dipshit down in the comments. Somehow, I really don't think I'm going to find anybody with a brain arguing for his side, but hey, you never know. Go for it if you do, because I imagine that the conversations that arise out of that will be hilarious.
Boom, dicky, 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 bum.